This video we are going to do the paper analysis for the UGC NET paper for December 2020 and June 2021 session for the subject electronic science. We know the whole syllabus of electronic science is divided into 10 different units, and these are the subjects that has been covered and in these 10 units. So here I have mentioned the corresponding weightage in this paper for the given subjects. So let us discuss. As we know, the electronic devices and circuit is the most important subject for UGC NET, and it has covered the maximum weightage, that is 21 questions were there in the paper from EDC only. Okay, so what were the questions? The question based on resistivity of semiconductor material was asked, and it was a direct formula based question like rho is given by, that will be Q into mu n into n plus mu p into p. So that is a direct formula based question. There was one question based on EK diagram, that is energy and wave vector diagram. So it is obtained by which equation? This kind of question was there. So it is based on the Schrödinger's equation. Schrödinger equation. Next, Schottky effect and Schottky barrier based questions were there in the paper, and they had asked the direct formula for induced image force, that is given by E upon 16 pi epsilon r square. There was a question based on JFET, and it has asked the formula for pinch off voltage, and there was few questions based on E MOSFET, that is enhancement MOSFET. They had asked when VGS is 0, what will be the channel conductance and what will be the channel resistance. They had also asked the operating frequency formula for the E MOSFET. There was some question related to the current continuity equation. We had to identify the correct equation. In JFET, they had asked the formula for current density. In JFET, they had asked the formula for transconductance in saturation region. There was a question based on dioc. In photodiode, they had asked the formula for response time. From MOSFET, there was one more question based on reason and assertion, in which they had asked about the pinch off voltage and substrate bias and threshold voltage relation. And there were 5 questions from passage. We know UGC NET always asks 2 passage based questions, in which they give 5 questions in each passage. So there was a passage related to MOSFET, in which they had asked the question related to drain current, threshold voltage and Poisson's equation, etc. So as you can see, the MOSFET was the most important part of EDC, and obviously semiconductor material is also the important topic from electronic devices that we have covered in detail in our videos. So most of the questions were asked from the videos only. There was a question related to metal insulator semiconductor diode, that is N-type diode. So they had asked the dBay length and mobility of this diode. There was a question related to ascending order of conductivity of SiO2, intrinsic semiconductor, extrinsic semiconductor, aluminium, and this was a repeated question from previous year. As we know, the UGC is going to ask you some repeated questions also. Okay, so there was a question related to band gap, and we had to arrange this in ascending order. So these are the materials for which we had to arrange the band gap in ascending order. So that was also a previous year question that we have covered in our video. So these subjects or these topics were mostly covered in our video, and most of the questions are asked from the videos only that we have covered in MCQ part of previous year questions. So if we look at the syllabus of UGC NET for EDC, that is unit 1, so let us see what topics that has been asked in the exam. So introduction of semiconductors, so they had asked one question from energy band diagram, that is EK diagram. That asked related to the question that is from diode. Okay, that asked question related to metal semiconductor junctions and Schottky contacts. They have asked question from JFET and MOSFET, and there were no questions from quantum wells, etc. These topics were not covered in this paper. Okay, so these were the important topics in the exam. Next subject in UGC NET or Unit 2 is from IC fabrication. From IC fabrication, there were 4 questions in the exam. Most of the questions were related to silicon oxidation. They had asked about the linear law, gas phase flux, and equilibrium segregation coefficient, that is Ka. They have also asked the question related to diffusion, oxidation, UV resist, and photolithography or X-ray lithography. So if we look at the syllabus for Unit 2 of UGC NET, so what are the subjects they have covered? They have covered the question related to oxidation, lithography. Okay, these were the most important topic in this paper. So they have asked question related to this only. Now come back to the other unit, that is Unit 3. From Unit 3, we can divide the Unit 3 in two subjects. Okay, the first part is network theory and the second part is signal and system. So this is signal and system. Okay, so from network theory, they had asked almost 4 questions. These questions were based on transient analysis. It was a numerical based question in which they had given one RLC circuit and we had to find the current I through the given inductor. There was a question related to filters like Chebyshev, Butterworth, all-pass filter, and active filters. There was some question related to the complexity of the given filters like Salon-Key filters, Butterworth filter, and low-pass filter. There was some question related to basic filter, that is low-pass filter, high-pass, band-pass, and band-reject filter. And we have to identify the frequency response for these filters. Like for low-pass filter, we have a frequency characteristic like this. For high pass filter, we have a frequency characteristic like this. For band pass filter, we know the frequency characteristic would be something like this, and for band reject filter, the frequency characteristic would be something like this. Okay, so like this, they had given some characteristic, and we had to identify them. From signal and system, they had asked almost 5 questions. The questions were based on the Fourier series, like even symmetry and odd symmetry, what components will be there. Like in even symmetry, what will be there, cosine or sine terms will be there, or in odd symmetry, what cosine or sine terms will be there. Okay, so like this, they had given some questions. There was a question related to identifying whether a given system is linear or non-linear, whether it is satisfying the homogeneity property or additive property. Okay, so this system was given in the paper and we had to identify whether it is linear, non-linear, or it is following these properties or not. There was a question related to Laplace transform and Fourier transform. So we had to find out the Laplace transform and Fourier transform of given functions. There was another question for Laplace transform in which it was a table-based method column type of question where they had given the Laplace transform of these given functions like e to the power minus at and sin omega t, cos omega t, and we had to match those from the column. There was a question related to scaling theorem. So in Unit 4, we can say the subject is analog circuit, and from analog circuit, the questions from were asked from BJT. The questions were asked from BJT, rectifiers, and op amp. So look at the questions. The question related to amplifier was asked, like power gain was given, and we had to find out the power gain in dB. There was a question related to BJT from common emitter, common base, and common collector configuration, and they had also asked question related to voltage divider bias and stability. There was a question related to magnitude, gain magnitude of band pass filter. There was a question related to op amp, and that was related to the noise, and this is somehow related to the noise chapter in communication also. In analog circuit, they have asked question related to self-bias circuit, voltage divider bias circuit, source bias circuit, and current source bias circuit also. So there was almost 5 questions from the analog circuit. So if you look at the syllabus, there was a question related to the biasing also. So that is stability, that is covered under the operating point and stability. Next unit is Unit 5, that is digital electronics. From digital electronics, they have asked the question related to entered variable map. What is entered variable map? Then they had given one K map and they had asked what will be the simplification of this K map. There was a question related to logical array, like we had to find out the output expression. There was a question related to ripple counter, and they have asked whether it is a self-restarting counter or not. There was a question related to comparator, like we know comparator is having two inputs A and B, and this is having three output like A is greater than B, A is less than B, and A is equals to B. So we had to find out the expression for these given outputs. There was a question related to JK flip-flop, like when J value and K values are 0, 0, then what will be output? So that will be QN. When it is 0, 1, so that should be 0. When it is 1, 0, it should be 1. And when it is 1, 1, the output should be toggle. So like this, a question was asked from JK flip-flop. There was a question related to trick table of the gates like NOR gate, XNOR gate, XOR gate, and NAND gate. So they had given the truth table for the corresponding gates, and it was a match the column type of question. They have also given one question from number system like octal number system, hexadecimal number system, binary number system. There was a question related to memory also, like a DRAM, dynamic RAM, and it was a reason assertion based question like refreshing is required in DRAM or not, and why it is not required. Okay, why it is required. And another question was from dual slope integrator from ADC, that is analog to digital converter. There was one more question from ADC, like numerical based question was there from ADC. So if you look at the syllabus for digital electronics, so they have covered the logic gates in the paper. There was a question from combination circuit based on comparator. There was a question from programmable logic devices, okay, logical array. There was a question based on counters. So ripple counter was there in the exam. There was a question related to analog to digital and digital to analog converter also. Okay. So these were the topics. Next unit is sixth unit, that is microprocessor. So in microprocessor, we know the syllabus is going to cover microprocessor 8086, microcontroller 8051. Okay. So from this subject, the questions were based on the instruction like jump instruction, what will be the content of instruction pointer, data segment register, how to calculate the physical address for a given instruction. So we have discussed these things in our video. What are the process control instructions? There were few instructions were given in the paper, and we have to identify which one is process control instruction. There was a question related to assembly code, like there was a code given and we had to find out the content of accumulator at the last. Okay. There was some question related to instruction cycle. We know the instruction cycle can be like instruction fetch, then decode the instruction, then opcode fetch, then execute. Okay, so based on that, we had a question in the paper. There was also a question based on troubleshoot of a microcomputer. So if you look at the syllabus, so the questions were asked from the instruction from 8086. Okay, so the questions were from instruction set. There was a question related to interrupt also, like the interrupt which is having the least priority. Okay, least or lowest priority, that is INTR. So these were the question that was asked from the exam. So assembly programming based question was also there in the paper. There was one question related to data structure also, like sequence selection and repetition. If you look at the next unit, that is the seventh unit, and we can divide this unit into three parts in fact, that is electromagnetic theory, and we can divide this into another part, that is antenna and microwave and radar. Okay, so in total 4 parts we can divide this seventh unit. So from EMT, they had asked a question related to parallel polarization and Brewster angle. As we have discussed that the Brewster angle is the most important topic, so that is tan theta b. So there was a question related to Brewster angle theta b. There was a question based on dot product of vector, like vector A was given, vector B was given, and we had to identify the correct dot product for these. There was a question related to the theorems, that is divergence theorem, that is the most important part of EMT. So it was a numerical based question. And there was a formula based question from time varying field, like del square V and del square A. From antenna, they had asked a question related to small loop antenna, and we had to identify the expression of E and H. There was a question related to broadside array, and ascending order of radiation resistance. So radiation resistance is the most important part of antenna. So we had to find the radiation resistance for short dipole, linear dipole, and there were two more dipoles, two more antennas were given in the paper. From microwave wave, they have asked a question related to the characteristic impedance of transmission line for coaxial cable. That is, this is the characteristic impedance. They had also given one question related to the frequency band of H band, J band, G band, E band for the US military. They had asked one question related to reflex klystron. That was a assertion reason based question. Next subject or next unit is 8th unit, which we can divide into two parts, that is communication. So it is having a subject like communication, and another part is optical fiber communication. Okay, and there is a small part that is IoT also. Okay, so from communication they had asked few questions like bandwidth of FM signal, that is Carson's formula, that is given by twice of FM into beta plus 1. Okay, so we had to calculate the bandwidth and the data was given in the paper. There was a question related to amplitude modulation also, like they had given two different modulation index 40%, 30%, and we had to calculate total radiated power. There was a question related to amplitude modulator detector, that is square law detector. One question was from M-array PSK, frequency shift keying, and quadrature amplitude modulation also. There was a question based on balance demodulator, dynamic range compression, and phase lock loop. That is the most important part, and in which we had to identify which one is going to be greater, lock range or capture range. So we know that capture range is always less than the lock range. There was a question related to modulation, like there was a question related to DSPSC, that double sideband suppressed carrier, vestigial sideband, single sideband, and frequency modulation. So they had asked to identify whether they are linear modulation or non-linear modulation. There was some question based on super heterodyne receiver, which is again an important topic of communication. So there was a question related to intermediate frequency. So they had asked something like, what is intermediate frequency? There was a question based on FDMA, that is frequency division, multiple access, time division, multiple access, code division, multiple access, and SDMA. There was a question related to bandwidth required for SSB, DSP, VSP, and FM. So we had to arrange the bandwidth for these given system in descending order. So if we talk about the optical fiber communication, so the question was asked based on multimode fiber, like we had to find the mode number formula. There was a question based on Rayleigh scattering and lambda relation. The next unit is the ninth unit, which we can say this is going to cover the power devices or power electronics. So from power electronics, they had asked question related to SCR. There was a numerical based question. TRIAC based numerical question was there. So mostly numerical questions were asked from power electronics. So if we look at the syllabus, the SCR, DIAC, and TRIAC, these topics were covered in the paper. The ninth unit we can divide into two parts, that is power electronics and control system. So from control system, they had asked questions like, they had given one question of RLC and we had to find the state equation for the given system. There was a question from control system based on roots. So there was a transfer function was given and we had to find the roots of the system. There was a question based on compensation and damping ratio, and there was a question related to type of the system, type 0, type 1, type 2, type 3. So like this, 4 questions were asked from the control system. So if you look at the syllabus, that asked one question related to open loop and closed loop system. There was a question related to transfer function, and there was a question related to controller and compensators. If you look at the next and last unit, that is unit 10th. So unit 10th is instrumentation and measurement. So from instrumentation and measurement, they had asked questions like, strain gauge, eddy current type transducer, variable capacitor type transducer, piezoelectric transducer. So the questions were related to transducer. They have asked question related to pH meter and chromatograph. There was a question related to definition of precision, accuracy, reproducibility, and correlation. They have also asked one question related to Q of coil in series connection measurement. So these were the questions that were asked from instrumentation and measurement. So if you look at the syllabus, the transducer was asked in the paper. Then they have asked the question related to pH meter, and question related to bit circuit was also there in the paper. And these are the topics that has been covered in the paper from instrumentation and measurement. So if we summarize, from electronic devices and circuit, there was almost 21 to 22 questions were there in the paper that is having the highest weightage. That is first unit. From second unit, that is IC fabrication, 4 questions were there. From third unit, we can divide this into two-part network analysis. From there, they have asked 4 questions. From signal system, they have asked 5 questions. So it is covering almost 10 numbers. Now, the next unit, that is fourth unit, analog circuit. From analog circuit this year, 5 questions were asked in the paper. Otherwise, this subject is very important. In the previous year, they used to ask around 10 questions from this unit. Next unit, that is digital electronics. They have asked 10 questions. So this year, EDC and digital electronics was the most weighted subjects. From microprocessor, 6th unit, they have asked almost 6 to 7 questions. From electromagnetic theory, or we can say the 7th unit, that is EMT, microwave, antenna and radar, they have asked 4, 3, 3 questions. From radar, they have not asked any questions. Okay, so it is covering almost 10 questions. From 8th unit, that is analog and digital communication and optical fiber communication, they have asked 9 questions and 2 questions. So this year, they have asked most of the questions from analog communication and digital communications. There was a question related to IoT, that is information, Internet of Things. So from that, they have asked 1 questions this year. From 9th unit, that is power devices or power electronics and control system, they have asked 3 and 4 questions. And last unit, that is measurement and instrumentation, they have asked almost 4 to 5 questions. So this is the weightage for UGC net paper for 2020 and 21 paper, in which EDC, communication and digital electronics were the most important subjects. They are covering around 50% of the weightage of the paper.